And thanks for coming out. And the rain stopped, so at least it wasn't torrential on your way here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Corrado. Do you need to do that? I run the Medina County Fiber Network, and for the next hour, hour and a half approximately, maybe a little longer, depending on how many questions you have, we're going to introduce Neighborly, which is a partner with us, and they will go over their information to give you more detail as to sort of what we're going to be doing here in the county. Medina County Fiber Network has been up and running now in its 7th year. We focus only on commercial at this point, but we recognized about 4 or 5 years ago that it was very important for us to not forget the residents of the county. It was always something on our mind. The network was just designed to start in the commercial space. So for the past 4 years, I have been looking across the country from St. Louis, actually to Canada, outside the country, talking with different partners that specialize in residential services. And we have been lucky enough to find Neighborly. Again, they will go more in detail. So let's just take a little look at history, because my grandmother always told me, if you look at history and find out what's happened in the past, you probably won't repeat the mistakes in the future. So let's go back to where the cities first started to develop in the United States. And it was near the waterways, right? Cleveland, one of the reasons Cleveland grew up so quickly is because we had the lake and we had the inlets coming in. So that was the infrastructure for moving goods and services, was via boat. So we go ahead a little bit further, and we have the Transcontinental Railroad in the late 1800s. So now we're able to have cities and towns spring up across the country that didn't have to be on the waterways. So now people were able to occupy, populate areas which previously was very difficult to live in. If you're out in the prairie, it might have taken you 3 or 4 weeks just to get a little bowl of sugar. So it was difficult. So now we go a little bit further into the early 1900s and the automobile hits, right? Now we start building streets. And we realize this is a good thing because we're connecting not only inside our cities, but we need to connect from city to city. So up comes highways and turnpikes. Now that infrastructure is allowing us to not only stay away from the waterways, but now we're able to drive to different cities and learn what people are doing in other areas, which was very difficult to do prior to that. And maybe it was impossible because we didn't have the money, right? Train tickets might have been expensive, it was hard to get on a train, etc. So we go a little bit further to the 40s and 50s, and now we have airplanes and airports spring up. So now places where airlines want to hub, those cities start to grow. And ideas, again, are being exchanged at greater distances. And it's not just from town to town and city to city in the United States. Now we're going over across the world, across the pond, as they say, and over to Asia and Europe and you know the rest. So the infrastructures have changed over time, and those communities that have benefited from a way of life and an economic development approach basically rolled with those infrastructures. Well, today's infrastructure, you may not know, but it's underground, and it's sitting on the poles out there, and it's in the form of fiber. It's basically moving data. So the goods and services, we moved on those boats in the 1700s. Now we have taken those goods and services, and it's in the form of information. And the infrastructure is so important that when Bethany is looking at companies to come to Medina County, or Grant is looking at them to come into Brunswick, one of their first questions is, do you have a municipal network? They don't just ask if you have fiber, but they ask for a municipal network. A municipal network is what Medina County Fiber is. It's owned by the county of Medina, and it's built for the businesses and the people of Medina. And that's what we're going to extend into the residents that we'll talk about a little bit later. So it's that infrastructure that basically is going to keep the county in a position for bringing in business, attracting people to live here. Now what we're going to talk about today, I'm not going to take any thunder away from Neighborly, but we're not just talking about television and internet and phone, right? Those are the three things that we've talked about across cable or connectivity. And all those things are great. When they're working, we don't think about it. When they're not working, boy, we're screaming, right? The capability of fiber goes beyond that. So imagine if you have a medical condition that you need constant monitoring, but it's very costly to get to your doctor, who's a specialist at the Cleveland Clinic over on Euclid Avenue in Cleveland. So this monitoring is very important, whether it's pulse ox for your oxygen, or you have AFib, or it's blood pressure, what have you. The capabilities that will be brought in through the Neighborly Medina County Fiber Network will allow you to have those monitors on at home and give you the bandwidth, the infrastructure, to be able to communicate back to your doctor real time. So we're talking about technology that's going to be changing the way you live. It'll take you to a higher level. It will be able to let you do things you couldn't do before that you can't do with a cable modem. We've already read about stories of people that if they would have had the monitoring, certain health problems that got worse could have benefited them greatly. And it goes further. It goes further. The data today is just blasting out as far as you can think. And that's why we need this infrastructure. Okay? So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Brian Snyder from Neighborly. Brian's going to talk about this partnership and what Neighborly does and how it's going to work with Medina County Fiber.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks everybody that came out. I guess real quick, thanks to Mayor Carter for making that spread out front. Isn't that awesome? I hope I won't make myself fall asleep during this. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come present what we're going to be doing here in the near future for all of Medina County, but we will be starting in Seville, Westfield Center, Lodi, and Guilford for our initial phase 1 that we're building out. We wanted to come in today to discuss what's going on in the future and answer any questions that you have. I want this to be interactive. I'm really excited to see just the amount of folks that have turned out and showing your interest to this. This is a passion of ours. We want to bring better connectivity to everybody. Different things can change when you're able to connect with people across the world. And right now, in this town and other towns and villages and townships, we're struggling across the United States to get better connectivity. And I feel that if we don't step in and do something, and when I say we, us as a community, step in and do something, it's not going to happen, right? And Neighborly's trying to work hard to change a lot of that. And to give you a high overview of what Neighborly is going to come in and do, we're going to take this from every step of the process. So we're going to work through from the engineering, the finance, the build, and the operate, maintain of the network, and think of Neighborly as the funnel that all of this will go through. So we will be paying for and bringing in the engineering. We'll be paying for and bringing in the capital to get this going, the construction, the operations and maintenance. We're going to have the ecosystem and partners that will come in and handle this to the best of our ability. We've spent almost the past 4 years trying to build the partnership team to get this done, and that ranges from Nokia to iFiber, who's going to be some of our initial providers on this network, to Docity for telehealth that we'll also talk about later on, Fujitsu, Siemens, some of the biggest companies that you can think of that are part of our ecosystem to get this done. It's hard to do this with one company. And we want to bring in everybody underneath our Neighborly organization to make sure this gets done right from the start. That's going to be key for all of us. Neighborly has experience in broadband all across the board. Some of the cities and municipalities that you see up there right now, Breckenridge, Colorado, Broomfield, Colorado, Huntsville, Alabama, we're actually doing the design, engineering, and partnership with Cable Fiber there. And we're looking at expanding that network the same way we're talking about doing this network, where it's more of a true open access. And I'll get into that a little bit more. Dave's done a great job of explaining it. throughout the years, and it's constantly changing, but we've been able to adapt to that change. To give even a little bit more background, with Austin, Texas, and Salt Lake City, Utah, with Google Fiber, in addition to, that's not up there right now, San Antonio, Texas, we came in and oversaw the Google Fiber build-outs for both the engineering and construction management. And to be 100% honest with you, we learned a lot about what not to do. One of the things that was being rolled out that I think needed to change in the way Google Fiber was doing things is they are a software company. They're more of a provider than anything else to what you're going to use at home, right? The infrastructure and the build-out of the actual physical fiber network is where we were seeing Google struggle. So one of the big items that we came out of that is let's look at a different way of doing this. Why was Google struggling? And what were some of the mistakes that they were making? And what could we do differently to improve on that? And immediately coming out of it, it was a separation from the services and the actual infrastructure that is provided across it. So we knew how to build out networks and operate them and maintain them. That was our specialty. We can do that, but we don't provide the services. And to be honest with you, we don't want to provide the services. We want to give the conduit to create additional services and competition and continue to expand on technology with how fast it's changing. So we kept challenging ourselves to look at this differently. And we started investigating open access networks in Sweden. The entire country of Sweden is wired to open access. And one of the big drivers there was telehealth. And some of the remote rural areas, trying to drive through 10 feet of snow, like I guess you guys had last week, to try to just get to your doctor to see for a regular appointment. And the connectivity that you can create on a fiber network, you don't ever have to leave your house and you can still talk to your doctor. That's huge. And it's going to change a lot of things. But that's just one part and one service of the network that's going to be a part of this. So continuing the momentum and what we were learning, we continue to try to figure out how we can do this better. And that's when we really started bringing our whole ecosystem. And it's not also just how to get to this final connectivity that we're all excited about. There's a lot of processes and steps to get there. How can we be more efficient even those steps? How can we be more efficient in engineering and construction? How can we go out there and construct and it doesn't make you guys upset? And not tear up your flower beds and be more efficient in those regards. We look at it from all aspects. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of trying to expedite connectivity to you. This is nothing that's going to happen overnight. And we'll talk about the process a little bit more and stress that fact. Just one other comment before we go through this. Ammon, Idaho is an open access network that Neighborly has just completed the financing for their second phase. And one of the items that came out of Ammon that actually started the network was gunshot recognition software for schools. And that's part of what can happen on this network as we build it out. If a gunshot goes off in a certain area around the school or really anywhere in Ammon, cameras are immediately identified on that area, messages are immediately sent out to lock down the schools, and it happens in real time. And that's huge for some of the issues that we're dealing with day to day. The security, the smart home applications that you can now have, it's bigger than just your internet and your cable TV package. And if you don't have that connectivity, you're not going to be able to do these things, period. There's too much data going back and forth and too much bandwidth required. I mean, some of the folks in this room probably are just struggling to watch Netflix on their TV. Could you imagine trying to operate your trust gunshot recognition to go off at the same time? Last thing we want to do is say, hey, a gunshot occurred there 5 hours ago. We haven't really accomplished much then. So the things that are you think can't happen, we can go try them with these types of networks. And every day that we're missing, not putting a shovel in the ground and constructing, technology is changing faster and faster every single day. So that's the importance, and that's what Neighborly wants to bring to the community. We will bring in the private capital to get this moving, but it's always your network. Our goal is to construct it, get it up and operational, and then transfer it back to the community. We want to sell it back to the community, but in a more streamlined and efficient way, to where you don't have to wait a year and Lindsay's got to go through a bunch of public bonds and things like that. It's going to take forever. We can deal that down the road as we work through and we have the network up and running and it's all working. So to get into a little bit more about just open access, this is just a good depiction of, imagine that's a fiber cable that's going into your house. So we will come to your house and put a piece of equipment where that fiber cable is going to terminate. And in the equipment that we bring in, there's these access ports that'll be on the, it's called an ONT or optical network terminal. And each one of those ports can provide the different services that you need. There might be ports on there that we never use, but we're going to have the capacity to where if you wanted to use it, you can. And you're also not limited to, I have to sign up for the triple play to get the packages I need and get the pricing where I want it to, because I don't want cable TV, I just want internet. This gives you the ability to not only just have internet, but you can have internet from one provider, cable TV from another provider, smart applications from another provider, and telehealth from another provider. I don't think anybody can do that on your network you currently have, right? You're stuck with your one option. The day that we hook up your network here, you're going to have multiple options for your internet, and you're going to have additional options for applications that are new to everybody. And that's the difference in regards to the open access network that we're creating. You do hear about open access networks in other parts of the country where it's more of a dark fiber connection. The difference in dark fiber and what we're doing, we call ours lit open access. Because we have the electronics on both ends of the network, we have the ability then to control those services and to give you multiple services. Because remember, we're simply the infrastructure owner. We do not provide services. If it's a dark fiber model, each individual provider would have to put their own electronics at the end of it. Then you're limiting yourself to how many providers can come in on your network. We're witnessing that in Huntsville, Alabama with Google Fiber. They want additional folks to come onto the network, but every single person that would have to come on would have to come put a box at your house. So any additional service that you're going to have added on, you want to have another technician coming out every couple of weeks. You all know as well as I do, typically that involves, hey, we'll be there between 8 and 5 and about 4 weeks from now, and they still won't show up at that time frame, right? When we have all of this set up and it's operational the first time, you're not going to have people coming out to your house unless you need something extra that's going to be pre-wired in the home for smart home applications and things like that. Or you're taking that next step in your service options. So I think that's really the cool part that sets a lot of this, think of it more as we're going to create a software part of the network. It'll be your app store for your home. So you go on there, you select different applications, and you download, and you're able to use it on your phone, right? In this service marketplace, you would go to a portal, and you would pick your services, and you would immediately have access to those services. And that's what we're going to work really hard to get set up from the start. And this is going to be an educational process throughout this whole build-up. So we're going to be showing you how this works. We're going to be setting up different, we call them our showcase rooms, where you can, we'll use a business space in Seville. I think Mayor Carter would be happy to help us with this. And to where we can show what it is we're actually offering. And that's a big piece of this. You don't know what you don't know. And if you haven't experienced what is a gig internet, what can I actually do differently because of that? And you also don't have to go from what you have now, if it's a 10 megabit connection, all the way to a gig. We're going to be offering different service options to where we can go that one next step. Okay, what does a 50-50 internet package do and what can I do with it? Well, what all do you need it for? Kids, grandkids, all their iPads are on there. It's like I used to have to have my internet connection to kick my kids off of their internet so my wife and I could watch a movie on Netflix. But we don't have to do that anymore. Luckily, we do have fiber that has been brought out to our house, but they're offering a gig, and I'm still not getting a gig. I know that, but do you all? are you all going to be able to be aware of that and call your provider and say, well, you're not actually giving me what I'm paying for? We want to come in there and help set that up for you to where there's no doubt in what service you're getting. Does anybody have any questions about this in particular? Because this is getting into the open access network specifics. I know there might be some additional questions on it. And any right now out of the gate here? Yes, ma'am.
Can there be too much information on there, with all these hackings and security?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we'll come in and we'll bring in companies like Siemens who will handle our security of the network. And they'll be constant monitoring and making sure that those items are happening. And you're right, it's getting more and more difficult to make sure that is secure.
It's scary.
Yeah, and we have to put those parameters up front, and we'll create and build in those security systems and checkpoints.
I have a question.
Shoot.
You might go over this later, but all those services are going to cost something, right? Are you going to have some average costs of what those things might be?
Yeah, so as we're working through this process right now, we're going through establishing what those costs are going to be. And we're pretty close to defining all of that.
Okay.
And it's more of coming up with the agreements that we're going to have with the initial providers that we're bringing in. So based on, it balances out with the cost of the network, with what we're charging for services, and then what their kind of contract's going to look like, what they're brought on, then we'll be able to show exactly what that cost is going to be. So we currently have service offerings listed on the survey that you'll be able to go through and fill out. Our goal is to drive more demand. And to be honest with you, the more folks that sign up, the lower our prices are going to continue to go. Just economy of scale. And so we're going to be looking for a lot of you to help us drive that demand. And that's one of the items I'll get into a little bit more on how you can help us bring up that demand and get more services.
Right. I could just add on Mark, if you don't mind. We generally see at least a third less. If you're doing it like some sort of bundle, you're getting significantly better service for about a third to 40% less on what you're currently spending. And we're not talking about a little jump, we're talking about a huge jump in bandwidth and things of that nature. So.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, don't hold me to that or anything. But
it's all wonderful, but if it all costs $500 a month, nobody's going to buy it all.
No, 8 markets, we've never failed on that. We've always failed.
Okay.
And real quick before we move on, I'm sorry I kind of skipped over this, but just quickly, I want to introduce Kelly Ryans with iFiber, who's going to be one of the initial providers on our network. And the rest of the team is with Neighborly. Y'all want to go through real quick and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. My name is Dan Capritis. I'm the Northeast Regional Market Manager for Neighborly Networks, which is probably 6 million to all. So I'll be overseeing everything.
Lauren Bender, I'm the project manager for the Medina County project.
Yep, my name's Ava. I work for Neighborly in New York. I run communications and marketing, and I'll be helping to work with you guys to sort of drive support and engagement with this network.
Garrett Brinker, Director of Business Development, also working with Ava and really driving work here. I'm from just over the border in Indiana, so very, very good to be almost home.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Brandon. I'm the Director of Finance at Neighborly. Really excited about being a part of this project and bringing capital to the table.
All these choices, I think so many of us are looking at, what do we have right now? We have Spectrum Cable TV. So I guess I hear you saying that all these choices are going to put pressure on Spectrum to come down.
Correct. And that's a good comment. So now that we're talking about this, okay, and it's public, the Spectrum's going to immediately react. And you need to be educated and understand that they're going to react and they're going to lower their price. But what hasn't changed? Their same infrastructure is in place, the same services are going to be coming across. To me, you're still overpaying for bad service.
They're going to lock you into 2-year agreements. They're going to come right out and try to get you some really good special to try to lock you up and out of when this becomes available. So don't fall for it.
So honestly, just my best advice is just be careful on what you're reading, what they're trying to sell you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so everybody seems not to understand in this room, and I'm talking about us. There are streets in our community that have no connectivity. connectivity, none. So when you're looking at any kind of an improvement, and that's extremely important to what I do and my street, because I'm one of them.
So that's another actually good comment. We're going to make sure everybody gets served, period. And we're going to do that through efficient models. So like you're saying, the street that you have doesn't have anything and you're not getting service at all.
It's an extremely long street. I mean, it's just north of town.
Okay.
And I have a brand new agribusiness that's on the corner of Route 3 and Kennard. And they had no idea that they would never be able to connect to anything when they bought it. And now she's sent me an email because they couldn't be here. But to get Spectrum at its worst, is $23,000 to my home.
Wow. There will be no installation charges or anything when we're coming in to set this up. We're setting this up with I mean, the way it's an experience. You're gonna have a service marketplace where you're gonna be able to choose multiple service offerings. And just like what you're talking about in regards to it's agriculture, and Bob and I were talking about this coming in. Also, this is Bob Knight, who works with Harrison Edwards, who's going to be also working with us for
not from Indiana, and you're safe in these chairs. He's a good Orville guy.
Bob and I were talking about this on the way over here, and just the drive. The amount of farms that are just right off of the road here as we're coming in and driving in. Fiber to the farm and for agriculture and to improve that's going to be something we work on to set up to make the farmers more efficient out here. That's a business just like anything else is. It just doesn't have brick and mortar in certain aspects, because what we can give them and they can leverage is going to be a lot different than what they're used to. They're going to lower their costs with what we're doing, which in turn is going to get them keep staying on services. Again, our costs will continue to go down as we get services added up to where everybody wins in this aspect.
What area are you going to cover?
We're going to eventually we're covering all of Medina. Okay. To start out, and let's be clear on expectations. We are going to be very transparent in regards to the steps that this is taking. Okay, this is not going to be done overnight. Another lesson learned from Google Fiber is they came in and announced, we're coming to Austin, Texas, and we're going to bring you fiber. You're going to call the next day and say, where's my fiber? It takes years to build these things, and we're gonna show you where we're at in the process all along the way. So we'll be honest with what we're expecting right now to give you an idea on timeline, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. We're about to dive into the engineering phase, which will be the first step where we'll have to submit permits, and we'll get that going through. Once those are approved, we'll begin construction. We're expecting some of the first homes connected in more of the August-September timeframe. This year. Then from there, we'll continue to expand. A fiber network is planned from outside in, because we have to make sure we have enough fibers to get everywhere first, and then we have to construct from inside out. So we'll be constructing as we go out from our central office with making sure we hit everybody. So the way you're going to get us to come to you faster is that demand. It is saying, you know, I've got my entire street wanting to sign up. We're on our way. We're heading that way to go build. We're going to have to work together to do this, but we plan on getting to everybody. We can't get to everybody at the same time. So we'll communicate, though, with you what your area looks like. The timing-wise, it'll be from here to here, and we'll get there. So we'll expand north to the county over probably the next 5 years is what we're estimating in our build-out and construction phase. Yes, ma'am.
Will this be coming to us by overhead wires, or will it be buried?
Combination of both.
Oh, okay.
We will definitely be using the poles here in Seville to the best of our ability. We'll also, as we're doing that, try to clean up the poles to the best of our ability too. We're working through it in case anybody comes back after the fact. It'll be a little bit easier for them. But it'll be underground as well in certain areas where we don't have the choice. But we evaluate both options. That is the biggest effect on cost. Underground is a lot more expensive than aerial or overhead. We use different techniques for underground to try to save costs. So in some of the, I don't want want to get, I'm going to start nerding out here in a second. But the typically way you do underground construction is you're going to directional bore, you're going to open up a trench, right? There's a new technology called micro-trenching that has been out for the past couple of years now, where it's a little slit that basically goes almost between the curb and the asphalt down the road. And it's minimal disruption, and it's a lot faster to turn up services. Probably when we're closer to the home, to make sure we're not tearing up your flower bed and doing certain things, we're probably going to look at micro-trenching in some areas. I was very interested to see how the roads were actually paved here. And we actually have a better, easier job of doing that because of the way they're paved. In certain areas where they're basically, it looks like big squares with tar going around it, we go right down that tar strip line and place our conduit and fiber right there. It could save us a lot of money and also get it to you faster if we did that. If we have to bury actually in the right of way, we would directional bore, we would build little pits, directional bore to make sure we're as disruptive or non-disruptive to your lawn, because we don't want to get any complaints on what we're doing too. That's another thing. We take great pride in communicating when we're coming out to your home. We will over-communicate, and you will see us out there, what we're doing. We'll make sure traffic control is handled properly. We want to get you connectivity, but we don't want to change your day-to-day lives in that.
Why are you here? I mean, in this location, Seville?
That's a good question. So we actually got introduced to Dave when we were looking at, we were working on our municipal program and trying to grow it. And we're also doing work with some of the other carriers from the engineering perspective. We were working on the Verizon project in Cleveland and looking at them expanding in the parts of Medina County. We met Dave because we had to submit permits, and we were talking at that time about the county network, and then we started learning more about what Medina County Fiber Networks did for their middle mile connection. And the fact that the county has already done that is huge, and a huge step already, which gives us the ability and access into the towns, which is great. But we also then started investigating Medina County. We realized you only really have one choice in everything that you have here. And that in itself realizes that there's demand. There's demand here for that. And we're going to some of the most rural parts of the country, and Medina County was an area that was being left off. We were able to create a really good partnership with what we're doing with Medina County Fiber Networks, and we really feel like it's an extension of what's already started. And so we want to build on that momentum. We do look at every area different. We're in some of the most rural areas of Maine, trying to build out these networks where it's a combination of both wireless and wireline in those regards. But ultimately, to answer your question, it was multiple reasons why we decided.
In this particular area, Seville, Lodi, Guilford Township, Westfield Center, as Brian mentioned, this network is your network. So what do we need to look at? Well, we need to look at what a community can offer to bring the cost of building the network down. And you have a great champion in Mayor Carter who came to me and said, well, you know, we have poles here in Seville. They're not owned by Ohio Edison. It's not going to cost us an arm and a leg to get on them. We can do some blanket permitting. We can move quickly. Lodi has poles. So we try to look at areas where that municipality can contribute the most. And of course, all of that lowers the price of the network to you. So as Brian mentioned, we will be moving throughout the entire county, but we were looking first at those areas with the biggest champions and with an infrastructure that could be leveraged for this to assist from a cost and a schedule basis.
Yes, sir.
The cost of Seville should be cheaper than anywhere else in the county. Is that product going to be for Seville? Because we have our own poles, the cost factor. Are you going to take that factor and multiply it for outside? Or are you going to say, well, Seville, you
that's a good question. So right now, the way we're looking at it is we're trying to keep pricing consistent all across the county to the best of our ability. But within each market, because let's say we're able to do more aerial than underground, that will affect and be able to lower the pricing. So the more we're able to build out in Seville aerial, it's going to help not only pricing for Seville, but other areas as well.
But you're going to use sills to offset their cost.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way a little bit.
Right, there's other areas that have poles as you head further north as well. But
yeah, it's not.
blend.
We're in Guilford. In Guilford, we're going to be aerial too. In Westfield Center, every area is different. Westfield Center, like I said, is probably going to be more underground there than anything. But I also think we do have the chance to micro trench, which is going to equal the cost. When we're budgeting in this in, we have to look at worst case scenario. So when we're budgeting in, we're assuming that we're going to have to come in and directional bore everything if we're underground. We're also factoring in, even though it is aerial, there's another piece of the aerial that does drive up costs, and that's called make ready. And it's getting the pole made ready for a new attachment. That is one of the things that is constantly misbudgeted at the end of these projects. For example, in Huntsville, because they didn't analyze the make ready ahead of time, they ended up spending an additional $30 million to build out that network because of that make ready cost. So if you combine the make ready cost and the attachment to your aerial pole, it might end up balancing about the same price as underground. Until we start really constructing, then we'll start being able to leverage costs. And I think you want Seville and the entire county to be able to benefit.
Yeah, but I'm kind of scared. We have a good system. All this weather, we didn't have any outage. Now you're going to start climbing up poles and playing with our poles.
We'll never get into the power space. We are going to be one of the last attachments on the pole. We will never get up above that's going to affect anything else. And we have to, in just certain OSHA requirements and things like that, NESC items, we have to maintain those to where we're staying a certain distance. Our construction crews will be certified in that, to where we will never touch another piece of anybody's equipment on the pole that would affect anything.
Why don't you explain that? Power is at the top.
Yeah, so like, power is going to be the top part of the utility pole. We have to maintain 40 inches from the lowest power before we can even touch anything on the pole. And then from there, every communications line has to be a foot below the other one. So we're not even going to be touching anything with power. Everything out actually in the field is passive. Everything that can be affected will be the electronics in your home. So that's when we need power. That's when we're going to need power, but it's already hooked up in your home. We'll be using your regular electric outlets and things like that. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
Can I ask Kevin, isn't Spectrum going to put stuff on our poles now? Or it goes on when I see Spectrum down with our poles?
Well, Spectrum's attached to our poles.
And are we noticing any difference because of that? Are you noticing anything?
No.
Okay. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I see them doing that.
So to also address the question regarding, and it was a very good one, if Seville has this infrastructure which can lower the cost of the bill for Neighborly, then shouldn't the pricing benefit on that? And where the pricing benefits for that particular piece is that after this network is up and running and is throwing off a positive net income, the municipalities will have the option of purchasing this themselves. Just like the people of Green Bay, Wisconsin own the Green Bay Packers. And by the way, right, when you own something, you can help direct it. You are more interested in it. You can't even buy a ticket to go see the Packers. You have to get it basically willed through your family, right? They fill that stadium every time. And the Packers, I guarantee, will never leave Green Bay like Cleveland left here. This is what we're talking about. So when the municipality, when the time comes, and the municipality says, well, we're going to bond this network and we're going to float some municipal bonds, then Neighborly will come back and say, well, you know what? It was 30% less expensive here in Seville to build. Therefore, your price of buying the network is 30% lower than somebody else who didn't have that. So that's where the ability not only to move the schedule forward quicker, but in the future, if the municipality wanted to own the network and control that as a utility, that cost would be less to that municipality.
And that's the other reason, that's a good point that Dave made, is because when we come in with private capital or grant funding or whatever the case may be, it is to accelerate it, but with the mindset that it's always going to be your first right of refusal to purchase back the network. So it'll be like a community purchase agreement to where you can use revenue bonds because the network's revenue generating at a certain point, and it would be a lot quicker and easier to go through that process than some of the other routes that you can go publicly. Yes, sir.
Once it's in the house, What happens inside the house? Do we have to rewire, or do we use the cable that's already in the house?
You can probably use the cable that's already inside the house. Now, it will depend on what services you're going. Do you want to answer this a little bit?
Can.
Go ahead.
Yes, use both. We're going to use some of your existing coax, but we will be running some Cat 5 on into the home. We'll generally take care of that for you. We'll want to get your phone services back out from your DMARC, back into where the gateway is sitting, the ONT, the device that that they're going to put inside. So there is some wiring, but it's very this is what happens when you get 9 hours of sleep the last 3 days. Okay. Anyway, it's not going to tear up a whole lot in your home. We're going to do a little outside wrap. On some of it really comes down to choices of what the homeowner wants to do. We can also bring it in through attics and stuff like that and hide and pass it out for you. So all in all, no, it's very minimal, generally done in an hour, and you're up and running. So.
We promise we won't take a cable and wrap it all the way around your house underneath the lap siding and then poke a hole into your living room.
But I will say, some of you homeowners, you do. That's the only choice we've got sometimes. So, but we don't want to. We always like to dress it out, but sometimes there's just funny things we've got to do.
I pulled into my house when AT&T was doing that, and it didn't go over very pretty. All right, Andy, go ahead.
Quick question. You said that the cable has to be down lower in the power and stuff. Have you ever run into it that you couldn't go because the pole was too short?
Yes. Yeah. And so we'll analyze that situation to see should we place a new pole or should we just go underground.
I know where I live, poles have been, wires are taken out from the trucks.
Yeah, so there's clearance. So that goes back to even some of those violations that we were talking about before. We have to maintain a certain clearance up over the road, and our engineering team will go out there and evaluate that. So like if the current, for example, if the lowest cable there now with the slat going over the road is, I think it depends on the road, but it's 18 feet usually. If that's already at 18 feet, we're going to have issues, obviously. So either we have to figure out, first off, can the current attacher raise a little bit more so that we can put on the pole? That's getting more into the make-ready items. Okay, we can. Then what is it going to cost to go underground those same areas? And we create tools to quickly analyze that. Like we got 4 poles and we got X amount of make-ready cost. What's going to be that same distance and cost if we go underground? Also got to look at speed then too. If I can go underground faster than waiting, that's another issue with utility poles. Typically you got to wait for each utility to come out there and move their line. They don't do that quickly. They don't. So, would it benefit us more by spending a little extra money, getting into your house faster, and getting you connected faster with revenue? We evaluate it from every single one of those assets.
I'm not sure it matters, I'm sorry if I missed it, but where is Neighborly headquartered?
Our headquarters are in San Francisco.
So you have representatives here today from California, from San Francisco, New York City, Brian's out of Alabama, Lindsay's in Denver. I think it would be interesting to say that if you had other carriers here, you probably wouldn't have their national team here. That's the dedication Neighborly has to making sure that these networks go out to municipalities. As Brian said, we're 13th in the world when it comes to basically connectivity in the United States. As a country that, I mean, it's just sad that we're at that point. The rest of the world is taking off into those new infrastructures, and our current carriers will only develop what will bring them the highest stock price on the open exchange. Well, this is why municipal networks, when there were 50 of them when I started 6 years ago here in Medina, there's 200 today. And it's because of companies like Neighborly that will go to all parts of where they need to go to make sure municipalities have the coverage they need and have the option of owning that coverage later on.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to have a local office here?
Yes. iFiber and us will be setting up local office.
Looking for space right now.
So, and actually, I want what's that?
Have it available.
Who is that?
That's a good question. I'm going to add a little bit extra to that. So one of the things that we identified early on when we were starting to look at municipal broadband, and because of how far we are behind, just in infrastructure, lacking infrastructure to even do what we're talking about, there's not enough resources out there that can construct, engineer, build all of this. And I'm talking about at a national ago, we created a Fiber Academy program where we would actually teach how to design a fiber network from the start. And it was more on-the-job training. We expanded that in New Orleans when we were working with them because they had a huge initiative going on where they're replacing all their sewer and water lines from when Katrina hit. And we are now in the process of working with one of their community colleges there to create a utility academy. So it also teach students how to construct the network as well. That'll obviously be a little bit longer program, but what we would look to do here is come in and create those same training programs and hopefully get local folks to work on the network with us. And that's one component. Once we create that connectivity here, we have the ability, even for businesses, to work faster. There's nothing to say that we can't design networks across the nation out of Medina County. In Birmingham, we're able to do that across the board too. Sometimes it depends on our connectivity, but we want to come in and bring additional workforce development here and continue to grow the economy that way. It's a community network. We're going to be local. We're going to set that up that way. Yes, sir.
I know the orientation today is about the individual homes, but did you say you are going to be able to work with small businesses?
Correct.
Because I have a 60-suite hotel, which I would be very interested in having something like this in versus Time Warner.
Yes.
But we've never been able to have that service through fiber optics.
Right,
Park Avenue West.
Stan, we talked about, actually I showed them that location right after our meeting this morning.
Okay,
We're coming out of Seville, crossing 76 and then going over to the hotel.
Yeah.
So we actually addressed that this morning.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, so we understand a lot of the small businesses are being left out too.
Right, like Bleach Tech on Ryan Road, I don't think we ever got to them. You know, whether we can get up that road.
Exactly.
So several of my clients would like to have the service.
Right, so partnering with Neighborly, we will be able to expand where the Medina County Fiber Network ended into those areas that were financially prohibitive based on the governmental budget. So we'll have that ability to get to you.
All right, that was great actually. I wasn't expecting that much this early. All right, so I think we talked about open access networks, went through this. So phase one, and what we're going through, I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly, but this is just a general overview of what we've done so far in regards to engineering, designing, and planning out some of the network as well. This is actually Medina County fiber middle mile network. The Seville distribution layout that we're going through, so these are like our main trunk lines that are going to be going down the center of the streets before we break off laterals into your home. And then the last mile that actually is going to your home, we've begun designing that out already, and we've done this throughout each one of these initial phases. And so that is what's driving how much our network's going to cost and then where we're going to be looking like for construction. Once we do this, this has actually been generated from auto design software, where we build the rules of what the network does using GIS data. We're able to push a button and it spits out this network for us. Now we have to go out and refine and really look at, can we get on the poles? Are we going to have to go underground? And we'll send crews actually out into the field to analyze that and then continue to refine our design. And then taking that, now we'll start creating our permits, and then we'll start creating our construction packages, and we'll move on to the next phase. But we've already done a lot of legwork to where we will be able to expedite, and that's why when I mentioned hopefully we'll have connectivity, early fall, later summer, it's because we've already done a lot of our legwork already before we're coming in to this meeting. And then Westfield Center distribution layout, the last mile, and this is just portions of what we're looking at as well. Lodi, and then the Lodi network as well, Guilford distribution area, and the Guilford network last mile going through. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Baker. I'm the superintendent of utilities here in Seville. You have these sample models. There's something that I want to get on board for Seville. I have a water and sewer plant that's a lot of plants at the county line, Wayne County line.
Okay.
Sewer plants south of town. I have facilities north of town. I want the ability to connect everything. Is that something we can get in the project early?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. We needed to talk about that early, because the facilities you're talking about would be more of that distribution layer that we would have to start bringing and making sure we tie that in. So let's maybe get together after this and make sure Lauren has those locations identified. I'm pretty sure we have them. Let's just make sure we're focusing on that as well. But yes, we can do that.
That's something I've never been able to do. I couldn't get fiber in my water plant. I actually constructed about a mile of fiber.
Did you say the water plant's south? Or?
South.
Okay.
South of Seville. Time Warner Spectrum wasn't there. It was an $18,000 bill on my poles to get fiber there. I worked a deal with Armstrong Cable. I installed their cable. They gave us service, picked up the neighbors on the way, and no cost. But so I got one cable provider, one area, and Time Warner elsewhere. And I got data I want to communicate between the facilities, but I can't do it because I'm on two separate cable providers.
That makes sense. Yeah, and we can work to get that set up, for sure. We need to do it early, though. So after this, let's definitely get together.
Same thing with Lona.
Okay.
Same situation.
Yes. We just need to identify where those facilities are at. And that's the good thing about the auto design software I was talking about. We can now just rechurn that. And it'll change some of, we might do some additional dual, cables in those same trenches or aerial lines to get out to your areas too. But those need to be connected with the main distribution network. It's just like the schools, hospitals, your key anchor institutes. Those are going to need to be connected with that main distribution layer that we were showing. And that's another component in all of this. The tying in the school districts and hitting fiber to the schools, and then also all the homes in the school districts are going to allow kids, when they go home, they're going to be able to do their homework. They're going to be able to work with that school and even create applications dedicated to that specific school district or its homework applications and things like that. It'll better streamline that overall process as well. Connecting to the hospitals and then telehealth is all built on itself, right? Connecting the police stations and talking about what we're doing with security and gunshot recognition. It all ties itself together. But we have to be connected to those key anchor institutes to be able to do that properly. Okay, so this is going more into a high-level overview of the process. The step 0 on there is the preliminary assessment that we've already completed and gone through, and it's where you're seeing some of those designs that we've completed already. The step 1 of early interest and champions, that's why you all are in the room here right now. One of the big items, and I want to request that if you haven't done so already, we have tablets on the outside of the room. Would love for you to complete, fill out your names and email address so we can send you some additional information on what we're doing. But this is when we're starting to educate and the early interest in champions and the sign up for services. Those steps 1 and step 2 is where we're at right now from our demand and what we're trying to drive to also educate you on the network. But we want the champions would be local community members, and we want you to express interest. Sit back after this meeting and talk to us if you are interested in being a champion. There will be not only incentives into doing that on the network, but we're going to educate you to where you can talk to your neighbor and explain to them what we're doing. The folks that weren't in this room, obviously recording it for being able to show it to them later, but we will educate you, actually train you on the network. It's more of the grassroots marketing campaign that we want to go after. So if you are interested in being a champion, and one of our champions just walked in the door, Commissioner Hudson, yeah, see, he's already volunteered to be a champion, so he can lead by example for sure. If you are interested in being a champion, Ava and Garrett will be happy to talk to you about that and give you more information. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, first thing is just make sure to sign up there. Please talk to us. We'll give you our contact information. And then when you actually start to go through this process through the portal that we're setting up, you're able to express interest in being a champion. And we'll essentially be the ones that you'll work with. Be able to ask questions, and we'll empower you with the information, the materials, I can't stress enough how important champions are to this effort. It is, I've seen, Brian was talking about Hammond, Idaho earlier, a town of about 15,000 people right east of Idaho Falls. And they were, at least in the United States, one of the communities that really kicked off this concept of champions. And you can actually go to some of the municipal buildings in Hammond, Idaho, and government officials there have the champions on a map all around in all of these neighborhoods. And they've said, yeah, here's the champion in this neighborhood. They host events like broadband and beers, or broadband and biscuits, or whatever, fiber and fries, they're the ones that are going literally sometimes door to door to their neighbors and their neighbors' neighbors and their neighbors' neighbors' neighbors, and the ones that are driving this effort. And so it's unbelievably important. We need folks like all of you to really help in this effort. So. We're willing to be there to help empower you with what you need to be going for.
So obviously we're going to come in and help with the marketing and support here, but this is a community effort, and that's where we're trying to get and recruit champions, and like I said, sets you up for success to keep getting people onto the network as well. When we start moving up and now signing up for services, like I said, we're going to start releasing like service pricing. I know that was asked earlier, here in the next couple weeks, and then we'll do more of we call it more of a pre-demand aggregation step where you're completing surveys. And I know some of you have already completed some surveys. We're streamlining that a little bit, and then you're transitioning into signing up for services. So once you sign up, then that's when we're going to start kind of planning out our deployment and things like that as well. But you'll have the service offerings listed to where you can sign up at that point. Then obviously we'll start moving into construction and building out. You'll within our service marketplace, you'll actually see how everything's progressing and we're moving through. Some of the marketing material and the campaigns that we're running in Katahdin, Maine, which is a very rural region. We're going to be putting out some of these same marketing materials here with door hangers, flyers, just as much as we can to get the word out there about what we're doing. Then that's going to generate questions. That's where we're going to need support from the champions, ourselves, our marketing teams. We want to be there to quickly not only give them answers, but give them the right answers. So there's a clear expectation about what's happening. This will give you a little bit of idea of kind of the mock of what we're doing when we're going to be going through for more of the survey and sign-up phase, where you're going to see within each area, we call them fiberhoods. I feel like we should call them neighborhoods because of our name. But slowly working through that to where each area is what we would like to have a champion dedicated to each area. And so more than likely wants to be where you live, right? And that's where we're going to have even potentially like rallies within each hood, and we would go through and try to support that to raise it to where it needs to hit the goal of the take rate that we're trying to achieve in that area. It creates competition within the champions and within the areas as well. We've seen it in other markets where you go out there and you do this, and well, my neighborhood signed up first. You're going to be getting it first, and then that next neighborhood's going to say, well, we want it next, and it keeps on building on itself, and that's the importance of this. But again, I can't stress the fact that it all really does start with you, and we're there to support you through this process, and when we're trying to get people to sign up and educate them about the network.
Right. Just one thing on that. We want your ideas too.
Yeah.
We certainly do not have all the ideas, and I think we've learned really innovative and cool things from all the communities we've been in. Another example in Hammond, they use lawn signs for everyone who has signed up, and so everyone who says I'm a fiber champion or fiber's going to my home has a lawn sign, and then it becomes a really awkward conversation with the one person in the neighborhood who doesn't have the lawn sign. So we want to hear from you on cool ideas that you have too.
No, that's a great point, and through every part of this, we want feedback. That's only going to make us better. It's going to make the network better. Feedback on what we can do differently in regards to the software software that you're filling out and help the stuff that we can communicate maybe a little bit better. When you go into the actual service marketplace and you're selecting different services and things like that, think of it as it's a portal to your community. So you're able to now use that portal to communicate to different aspects all across the board, right? But what else would you like us to add on? We're open to anything. You know, we'll look at it, see what we can do, and go from there. Thank you, Gary. All right, giving you a little bit idea of the service marketplace you've heard me mention multiple times. This is where you would come in, you select your different services. We mocked this up a little bit differently so we can just have one slide and show you multiple choices. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when we get to this point, you are selecting your services. You would go over and you would select like your internet, and then you have a list of iFiber's pricing and iFiber service offerings. You would go to telehealth. You would see the telehealth different offerings. It would be broken up into layers based on services. We wanted to do this on one shot so you could see that you have telehealth and multiple different providing internet options. So this is where we're going to want you to spend a lot of your time. Hopefully not too much because you're getting great service from iFiber, and you're not going to want to switch services, right, Kelly?
No.
Yes, sir.
We all have spectrum. And is there only defense to combat you when you roll this out to lower their price, or will they try to do a fiber install themselves?
They'll probably go to Mayor Carter and say that they are looking at building out a new network because of this. But then it's on their timeline. So they can do it. I'm sure they'll mention that and probably throw that out there. I've had Charter and some of the other areas I was in say that same thing, and they come and give me a different option, and they never actually change their physical line.
They can't jump onto your...
They can, yes. No. That's access. It's open access.
Yeah.
We're not going to limit it. If Spectrum wanted to come on board on our networks, they're more than welcome to. We're agnostic in that.
There's going to be there's a playbook that they play off of, and not to single you out, but we have a member of the press here, so obviously there's going to be an article about it. So what's going to happen over the course of the next few days, maybe a few weeks, is you're going to start receiving flyers in the mail at home announcing new services or lower prices. Again, it's the same service that you have, but the price might be adjusted a little bit. Then what's going to happen is they're going to come into town hall, they're going to send their lobbyists and representatives in, and they'll be sort of speaking back and forth. They'll show up at Chamber of Commerce breakfasts and things like that. It's basically to sort of confuse. It's like a misinformation campaign a little bit. And they're going to say, well, we're going to be wiring the entire community. The reality is, it's on their timeline, and it could be 10 years from now, it could be 20 years from now, and it's the way it goes across the country.
Most probably,
I mean, it's so blunt, but it's.
Most probably, if they were really going to wire the community, they would have done it by now.
They'll talk about 5G and 5G connectivity. The reality is you can't have 5G without the fiber because there's so much data required for 5G cellular connectivity that you actually need the fiber backbone. Yes, ma'am.
Will this support mobile phones? Spectrum just came out.
Are we going to be offering a mobile phone option?
Yes.
Yes, we will be. It won't be in the first launch. We have to get it to a certain volume size to really be able to offer that. But I see that within the next 12 to 18 months that we are going to be bringing on board with all of our additional services. We want as much as possible. You buy your products through and with us. And remember, your home's going to be wired. So they've got fiber there. There's no reason why 5G needs to hang on the pole when we can actually bring it inside the home and set up that environment. So, I mean, there's going to be options that for cell phone purposes, mesh purposes, all those kinds of things that are going to be really interesting. But yes, it will be coming.
And then what kind of coverage would that be?
Everywhere. Same thing you're used to. It's going to be like if you got a Sprint service, you got a Verizon service, it's going to be the same kind of offering it up now. So.
Okay.
You mentioned for 5 years to move to northern Medina County, but I don't know that I really understand the initial rollout with Seville and Westfield Center and Lodi and Guilford. What kind of time estimate do you have?
We're estimating that build out to be the next 12 to 18 months. We want to try to do it in a year, but we're be realistic.
By the end of 20?
Yeah. I think that's a good estimate. And that, now, if we can get enough construction crews that know what they're doing, we can expedite that. But we don't, last thing we want to do is rush this out and give you guys a little quality.
Okay, so you say Guilford. Guilford's a big area. Is it all of Guilford? All of Westfield Township?
Yes.
Okay, because you keep saying Westfield Center.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it.
It's okay. I think last month I called it Westville. I'm sorry.
For having non-connectivity to be able to say within 2 years there will be for the entire southern area?
Yes. The entire southern area is our goal to hit that.
But realistically, you probably won't be, and putting words in your mouth, this is a question, in the very southwestern part, which is like Homerville, Homer Township, and the very rural areas.
That's where we're looking at doing more of potentially a wireless deployment first, to get connectivity there and better, when I say connectivity, just better service offerings. And even wireless at that point in some of those rural areas are going to probably be better than what they have, even if they have anything. And then what we'll do is, over time, we'll work on getting fiber out there. And because it will take longer to get fiber out there, but let's come up with a solution. That's where the wireless component comes in. We get wireless out there so you have a fixed wireless internet service, and then we'll work on building fiber out to those rural areas. So that'll be kind of a staged approach there for some of the more rural areas. Yes, sir.
So Seville and Lodi have their own electric. So you don't have to go out to Edison and go into Westfield Township, and that's Edison. Did Edison already give approval?
We will not be probably starting attaching on Ohio Edison.
You won't?
And I'll give a little context behind that. Ohio Edison, and I'm sorry if anybody in here works for Ohio Edison.
No, but retirement comes from there.
But, and don't write this down.
I'll start off with my opinion.
We're working in other areas and doing engineering and construction on some of their poles. They are allowing temporary attachments to the poles with not a lot of oversight. Our concern is over-attaching to those poles and something happening to our fiber, and I won't let that happen to our infrastructure. I don't trust the way those poles are laid out, and we've seen it in every area we've gone in so far with Ohio Edison. We've done a lot of work with them. Basically what they do is they say, you submit a make-ready application like we were talking about before, and they say, but right now just attach temporarily. And literally you could add like an arm coming off the pole and put another attachment, and I still got 8 other attachers here. If one of those attachers comes out and does something stupid, it's not only power I'm worried about, we're worried about our network at that point. So more than likely I'll be going underground where Ohio Edison's poles are. That wasn't that bad. Okay, and that's kind of pretty much getting to the end of everything. You know, a little more context about Neighborly. Neighborly works to bring capital to communities for certain projects. Neighborly has invested in a single fire truck, a single school within a community. Neighborly has shifted to realize a lot of the other things that we do want to build out in infrastructure and technology has to have broadband there first. And that's why Neighborly is making a big change where pretty much 100% of our focus is on broadband. Then we can do a lot of the other things that we want to do. Our CEO always likes to ask this, but can anybody tell me where that city is?
Yes.
That's a trick.
Yes.
That's a trick question.
Nailed it! Oh my God! That is the Back to the Future song. So I know. So that's the clock tower that was the gas station back there, and where I think the pizza place where Biff was chasing Marty McFly. Okay, so at this point, fire away with any additional questions you have. It's been great, the interaction. I really appreciate going through this, but fire away at any additional questions you have at this point.
I saw you had confidential on there, but the maps of the various villages, can you provide those at least to the mayors that are here so they can have it for their...
The mayors, we are videotaping this, and it's going to be, the presentation will be integrated with the videotape of this, and it will be sent to the mayors and the council until Neighborly the next 2 to 3 weeks. Basically does a county-wide marketing campaign, at which time then the presentations will be up on a YouTube channel for anybody within the county to view all this.
Now, just real quick, to add to that point, if you're not living in the areas that we're going to at first, doesn't stop you from expressing your interest in us going to those areas. That's the beauty of having Medina County Fiber Networks as a partner here. They have fiber into every city, and if certain areas express enough interest outside of it, we'll go to those areas too, quicker than what we're showing. So you can still complete the survey and provide interest even if you live outside of these initial phases. Real quick for your question.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, obviously, we think you made a great choice in terms of starting with Medina County and starting with southern Medina County. You've talked a little bit about the spectrum, and I'm sure it's no secret that probably went into some of your decision making because they don't make a lot of us happy. But when rumor this started, we just can't believe the excitement that's out there. I think you're going to find this to be a great community. You're going to get the numbers you need pretty quickly. I think it's going to move very well for you. So you're going to be very welcome, I know.
Got to help us get the message out.
We have a lot of good people that will.
Is there currently a map of where the fiber is in the county? Because a lot of us have noticed cable of some sort being run, and if that map was available, that would be lovely.
It's on the website for Medina County Fiber Network, but I will make sure it also gets placed on city websites, the township, etc. So you can see it there too. So the success of this is actually in your hands. It's always nice to be in the driver's seat. Again, you don't have to wait if you're not in the areas Brian mentioned. Give a shout out to me or to Brian. We'll have all the information. You'll be given periodic updates when you signed in on the laptops. That's the nice thing about the community network. It belongs to the community. So you can make this as much as you want, as successful as you want, as many services as you want. I don't know if you got from that slide that Brian was showing that when this is at full steam, it's the click of a mouse to change your carrier. I mean, that capability, again, you're in the driver's seat. I have all the confidence in iFiber. They've done this for 20 years. There will be competitors to iFiber, just as we have 13 carriers on our backbone, so they all compete for your business. But that's how easy it will be to make a change.
Usually that click involves them going to iFiber, so.
Okay. So we're going to have you then go in that direction.
We compete. In some of our markets, we have like 18 providers inside just one county. So just know that that's the power of open access, that you're going to have access to a lot of different sources of internet, all those different services we've been talking about. We can't be a more equal playing field than open access.
Yeah, like the question earlier about if we would allow spectrum, sure.
Absolutely.
Are they going to be willing to do it?
Absolutely
That's
not.
the question.
They never have. I mean, in Washington, we've been doing this for 20 years. And by the way, your Idaho project, they were in diapers when we were doing champions, okay? They won't. Comcast won't. They'll use some of the dark fiber part, but they will not come on board. You might have your local cable companies, if there's such a thing in some of these markets. They'll do it, if they're more regional, local, but they just will not participate. They won't do it. They should. But.
I want to add one more thing for some additional questions. The term 5G was thrown out a little earlier, and there's a big misconception about 5G.
Yeah.
5G is going to create a bigger digital divide in our country. 5G is only going to hit the urban metropolitan areas. The 5G technology is totally dependent on how much fiber is placed to a certain point. So just to give you kind of a contextual example, if I placed a 5G antenna in this room and I put it in this far corner here, I could not get service over that video camera right now because it only goes a certain distance. It only goes a couple hundred feet. So how is that going to help you if I have to place fiber pretty much all the way down your driveway to get a 5G signal into your home? I'm going to just go ahead and place fiber the rest of the way. It'll be the same cost anyways, and you're going to get better service. Where we see 5G coming in, and we will build this network in preparation for 5G, it's going to be the smart city applications. It's going to be the future autonomous vehicles that are going to happen. 5G provides the quickest speeds wirelessly, but it'll create the ability for those low latency applications that must be used. I mean, you could think of an autonomous car has to be able to react at a split second, even less than that. That's the connectivity that's going to be provided for 5G. But it's the same thing that they're dealing with Verizon, AT&T, all these companies that are building out these 5G networks, not sizing their fibers properly. Where they're putting at. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but 5G can't turn corners right now. So you have to put a 5G at every corner to then go down another street. So I have to have fiber potentially at every corner of that intersection. Again, if I got fiber at every main intersection, I got businesses right next to me, well, why am I caring about getting 5G into those businesses when I can just do a lateral and get fiber? So 5G is going to continuously be, I guess, misconstrued by the incumbents on what it actually is and what it can do. So 5G is not going to solve anything that we're trying to accomplish. All it is going to give us another layer of technology that we'll be able to use later on.
So if you watch the commercials on TV, you think 5G is going to give you blazing speed to your cell phones. Well, as Brian said, it can't even go around corners today. So you're on the opposite side of this building, all of a sudden you're going to lose your reception. So this is what you're going to see probably with Spectrum, as was mentioned. They're going to tell you about the network they're going to build and the services they're going to bring. But again, remember, this is an open network, which means anybody can come in and connect to it. So that means, and they can connect like that once it's built. If there's problems with the carriers on the network, other carriers can come in. All right, that's the key. You'll get the promises from the carriers in the area, just like Verizon is doing the 5G commercials. That's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But it probably won't be seen in our lifetime for changing anything on the cell phone we hold. It'll be autonomous cars and those type of things. It's not going to be really helping us in the house or in the business. And as Brian said, if you need all that fiber, why not just connect to the fiber? And so don't be confused by that coming out.
You just made a great comment. He said, well, you're going to get 6G before you get 5G. It might be 7G, 8G, whatever the heck that is. That will probably be what is actually going to be provided here, more likely by the time that technology is here. Our goal, though, is for that technology. So 5G, again, is you're dealing with each different wireless provider would have to put a different antenna up on your poles, and it's causing more equipment issues. By the time you're talking about that technology getting here, we see it to where we can put one antenna and multiple providers can go across that 5G network. But, like you said, I thought that was a great comment. But by the time it gets to certain areas, it's going to be 6 or 7G.
You have to sign contracts to get this service, and how do you do the billing for the different services that you want to get?
That's a good question.
Is it individuals or is it the one place?
So we're going to work to build a billing system where everything goes through one. It's not there right now, so like you would be getting your bill through iFiber for their services that are being offered.
And our contracts are lifeline, so. we do have some longer term, take advantage of some of the specials, but most of the time it's just month-to-month service. I mean, we have to earn your business every single month, earn your respect.
Yes, sir.
This is Medina County. What is this going to do? We're paying for your cable now. The city, the county, everybody. If this comes on, is that going to lower the payment of Seville and Medina County to pay off that debt?
So the Seville amount has already, there was a fixed amount that has been used. The gentleman's referring to certain cities and villages gave a loan, which is being paid, is accruing with interest, to the county to offset payments on the bonds. So that was a fixed amount that has been used. The rate at which the county will be paying back that amount will be accelerated because there is a revenue portion of each household that is paid to the Medina County Fiber Network for these networks. So yes, we hopefully will be able to accelerate how fast we can pay back the cities and the villages, and with interest, and I have those numbers, that it grows. So we...
you have a time frame there for what you're figuring out is going to happen?
We right now are at about 94% of the bond payment, but we still have overhead and direct costs of running the network, which puts us at about 65% of total sustainability. We're probably looking at about 3 years from the growth of the Medina County network plus the revenue coming from the residential to where we will be turning a profit and starting to repay the loans. And it is a loan. That wasn't money given. That loan is actually earning 5.5% per year on that money for the cities and the villages, et cetera, towns that gave that loan to the county.
Question. And I don't think we talked about this or not, but what about equipment in the home? So you're going to get the fiber, and you're going to run it through the front door. How do folks get the equipment they need to utilize that signal?
We'll place the equipment. We'll place the equipment. Now, based on what services you have to sign up for, with additional smart home applications, that's where iFiber will have to come out and provide potential additional wiring. But we would bring it into the home and get everything set up.
So then, would there be a charge to the consumer for that equipment, or it'll be part of the monthly?
It'll be part of the
monthly fee. Yeah.
No, we're not going to charge for installation. Yes, sir.
What is the monthly fee?
Say what?
As you come up with monthly fee charge, what would the average homeowner?
Yeah, that's what we're working through. So, and I guess it's a little bit of a loaded question because you're going to be, if you just have an internet package, you're going to be paying just for your internet package. You know, I pay over $200 at my house for my internet and cable TV packages, which is ridiculous in my opinion. What we're seeing probably for multiple packages with internet, cable TV, and let's say you sign up for telehealth or something like that, I feel like it's going to be in the range of $100 to $150 probably total.
What do you pay now? What do you have to, you know?
Well, a little further north, Armstrong.
Yeah.
So it's just really the phone and the internet canceled the TV subscription, and it's about 105.
So you've got Zoom 2 40 meg product, sounds like maybe?
No, I've got the Zoom 2, which is what, 200 down and 20 up.
All right.
So with ours, with those two, you'd be.
I'm giving.
Well, I'm just where we're at estimating wise.
But it's still interesting. You know, Armstrong have all the competitors. I mean, Comcast, Spectrum, all of them. He's killing it. I mean, we go in, although they are monsters compared to us, a little company, but in the marketplace, I mean, in our local markets, we do very, very well. Armstrong has got a fairly decent product. Like what you're going to see here, the prices that are a little bit less than what Armstrong's at, but the speeds will be significantly more. So you're going to get a better value out of that than what you're currently out. So as more devices come into the home, and I don't know if they was, I mean, you know, gig internet. Wow, great branding. I got gig internet. How much do you really use? Well, if you're one single person in the home, you know, you'd have to have all kinds of, because it's not going to increase your necessarily the speed. It's about the volume. So if Johnny's upstairs, you know, watching, his iOS system, Apple TV, plus he's doing this, plus he's doing that, and Susie's over there, and Mom's got this going. All those things add up. I mean, a TV stream could be 10, 12 meg, you know, and those things just add up this way. So that's where your bigger pipes are going to come in more handy. And it's like television. Who's got television here? Linear TV, right? You're getting your standard TV packages. That's not the TV of the future, gang. You're going to be looking and giving options here where, you know, you're paying right now for channels. We all watch 18 channels. That's it. but we're paying for 200. Okay, and that's the way the cable and the broadcasters have it designed. Why do that? Why not just pay for what you want? Well, because my internet sucks. It's not anymore. You're going to have access to amazing speeds and access directly to those servers. So we're seeing a transition like in Washington, where we call it linear TV, of people, and again, demographics, I'm kind of at that age where I want to go home, I want to, but why do you have to be somewhere at 7 p.m. to watch a game? Well, I should say game, game's a little different. But watch, a TV show or a series or something that I want to watch. You can order almost anything online on demand. So how TV is going to be viewed in the future, you're going to have those choices very quickly as we bring up the new services. And like iFiber, we've developed a product, it's HLS, doesn't matter, we can get into, I can totally geek you out on that, but it's basically what it is, it runs on your Roku, or it runs on your Fire Stick. You don't need a set-top box. It's wireless. And you've got access to all your football, everything you're used to that right now you cannot get online. Most of that are your local channels, your ABC, NBC, CBS, etc. Okay? That program alone takes care of TV issues, or anything's missing, that takes care of that part, and then you assess right. Well, I watch ESPN. Well, go get it. Hulu has it, Sling has it. Order what you want. Only watch what you want, and don't be paying for the other 180 channels that you don't watch. So TV is the biggest area of change. When it comes to the products themselves on the internet, you're going to get about twice that speed as you start doing more devices. So you can do one of two things. You can reduce down as far as what you're paying per month. It probably end up with what you currently have. All right, but but I will say we're not going to deal with a lot of slower speeds. I mean, and in Washington State, our slowest speed is 100 meg. 100 meg. That's where we start. So we're going to take a look at something like here. I know we've got to kind of launch a little lower as we go into these markets, because frankly, you guys are used to slower speeds.
I'd like to take just 2 minutes to put the technology hat on, because we're talking about this speed thing. So let's make sure we understand the difference in the products. So what cable companies do is when they run a line down your street, think of a big fire hose. And off that fire hose, each house that signs up taps off that. So if you're the first person on your street, you're getting a nice big flow of water. And then as more taps come off of that, you're getting less and less and less. If you ever looked at contracts you have with cable providers, it says the speed we are providing is a guaranteed maximum, and speeds can drop below that at any time. Those of us in the technology arena, we check these speeds all the time when we're going into different places, and 9 times out of 10, they are much less than what they said, because everybody's sharing that fire hose. Now, when you have fiber to the home, you have individual hoses from each house back to the head-end equipment that is giving you the same water volume at all times, no matter how many people on your street are drinking from that fire hose. So, on the Medina County Fiber side, when I go into a customer, a business, who says, oh, I have 100 down by 10 up, we normally replace that with a 30 by 30. Which gives them twice the performance of what they have. So don't get confused by these numbers when the cable provider says, oh, we're going to double you to 200 down by 20 up, okay? It's that upload speed that is the most expensive part of building on a network, which the cable providers normally don't increase much. And that 200, again, is a best effort. They can tell you they're selling you 200, but they don't have to provide it. It's a best effort.
But it's still on the same network you had yesterday.
Right. It's on the same network. It's on the same cable. They haven't changed the equipment. So how on earth did they get the size of the water hose to go bigger? Right? So that's the thing you have to remember. When Kelly is saying 100 by 100, that is guaranteed 100 by 100. Your water hose.
98.2, something like that, when we run a speed test.
There's a little overhead on all networks, but basically that's a guarantee. And by the way, all that equipment is monitored too, like we do on the fiber network. So heck, we'll know if you have an outage, a power outage in your house before you do, because it's monitored 24 hours a day. If the box goes down, the people at the Network Operations Center are going to know that. That's a lot of companies. We tell them, even if it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning on a Saturday, and nobody was at the company, we will still call them on Monday and say, we noticed you had a power outage, you might want to talk to your electrical company or call whoever your provider is to find out why you had that outage. Because we saw our network equipment bump for that hour, then come back online. So we have eyes on that at all times. So big difference in products. So you're going to be paying about the same or less.
A little bit less.
You're going to be doubling, at least, maybe tripling the bandwidth you have that allows you to go into new types of applications, and it's going to be monitored and managed. So we know when there's a problem.
I'm going to just brag here a little bit. iFiber, this is while speed test was still publishing its numbers, which it didn't because it got bought by Comcast. But when it did it, we ranked within the top 3 fastest in the nation. We were up against, tying with Google, okay, Google Fiber. So that same thing we're doing there is what we're bringing here.
And a lot of what they were just talking about too, that's why we want to set up that showcase room that we're talking about, so you can see the differences.
Dave, can you tell us a little bit about the different technologies that, other than cable, telephone, internet? What else is there? Keep mentioning technologies. Give us some examples.
So we talked a little bit about the telemedicine, being able to monitor, heart rate, blood pressure, those type of things from your house. There are smart homes, sensors that you'll be able to, say, access devices in your house when you're away. Oh, I think I might have left the heat up. We went away for vacation and during the winter time, or we headed to Florida. Did you remember to turn the heat down? Well, let me check. You go on your phone or on your computer and you can check that.
Hot water heater,
all right? Hot water heater, air conditioning. I know that I have my HVAC is internet capable, so I always, when we go away in the summer with our boys on summer vacation, I always set the air conditioning to like 80 in the house. But the day before we come back, I get on the internet and I put it back down to 69. So it's nice and cool when we walk in the door.
I just, if you don't mind, just add something to it. Here's what, a lot of that technology is kind of out, but what you'll find as a consumer is that you buy this, you buy that, none of it really communicates with each other necessarily. What you're going to see here is one application running the entire suite of products. So you're going to be able to go through your iFiber app, you're going to be able to access your home monitoring, all those services we're talking about, turning your thermostats down, making sure your front doors are locked, make sure the garage door is closed, did I close it or not, looking right there inside the iFiber app says, yeah, green light, you're good to go. I mean, those kinds of things are what you're going to have with home automation and home monitoring. Those are some of the future products that, we hear people talk about. But again, how do I use it? What's my interface? How do I access it and monitor it versus having, how many, everybody's got this, right? And how many pages down do you swipe to find those applications? You don't need more of those. You want it down to one place that you can shop for all of it and do all of it. So that's what we're developing right now to have ready to go as we launch into this marketplace. So, and with our other markets.
That just brought up another question then. What type of a financial investment is somebody got to make in their house? All of a sudden, it's optional. I understand it's optional.
Yeah.
But if you have a Nest thermostat and different things, now okay, I got to change that to work with your system.
Nest is one product. That is a product. Most of these products, we're trying to figure out a way to work with. And that meant we had to find the perfect partner to utilize their hardware. And we think we're down to 2 right now that really both are very strong. And these will be names that you will know as we start launching the services. And one of which is kind of an interesting industry to do this, but they've got a fantastic iOS, works in I'm getting ready to geek out again. But anyway, we'll be able to completely write all of our software around it and put it all under one tab for you.
So like with my HVAC, my heat exchanger broke last April. So when I bought the new air conditioner and furnace, the sensors, the ability to connect wirelessly into my network was already built into the appliance. I changed nothing, I purchased nothing extra. I'm sure there was a price in the unit itself that the manufacturer puts in, but I needed a furnace, but all it was basically was just going in and telling it the password of my wireless and I was off and running. So I didn't have to run wires in my house or buy a bunch of expensive sensors. The manufacturers are already building this into the next homes because the builders buy these appliances at the tens of thousands. So your home is going to be smart, but whether you want to enable what is going to be in those appliances. It's going to be whether you want to be on a network like this.
But there would be minimal monthly fees and some of it you can go out and buy and you'll just tie in. You know, we just make that accessible to the software. And remember, some of the stuff that David was just talking about, you know, it's not a matter, even if you got older equipment, you can make modifications to some of that older stuff, HVAC systems, et cetera, to actually bring that technology, which is something else our technicians can do for you. So.
Any more questions?
We know that
excellent questions.
Yeah, we know that this is new for most of you all, and if you, your family, your friends, your neighbors have any questions today, tomorrow, at any stage, whether the design, the building, the construction part, even when it's up and running, if you have any questions, you have the full force and dedication of our team to help you guys out.
And by all means, if you want to hang around and talk a little bit, we'll be here. Please, I know Mayor Carter made that wonderful banquet out there. So if you want to just sit and eat and talk with us and shoot the breeze, feel free. We'll be here for a while yet. So thank you all for coming out. I do appreciate it.